Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tractor for. This time, past tense, part one. Past, present, future. You're here in the present. Help us with our future. Become a Patreon member. Patreon.com/ABD. Support us, support the mothership. It's All Been Done Radio Hour. Get all the bonus tracks. Get all the stuff early. Get the video. You get it all. And not for very much. There's several tiers. There's new tiers. There's new prize. Well, they'll be new to you if you're not a Patreon member either way. Follow us, patreon.com/IABD. And I'm saying that in the future tense, but we're talking past tense. Part one, Deep Space Nine. It's all been tracked before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Tracked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. We are here to talk about the episode Star Trek Deep Space Nine, past tense part one. First impressions.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's interesting that of course it's set in the current year that we are in right now, us in real life.
Yeah.
And
I mean, by the time this podcast hits the podcast, it was last year.
Right. Well,
as we were recording it, yes, it was 3 weeks ago.
it feels so. I mean, the futuristicness of it is. I mean, it didn't feel too far off. The one thing I kept thinking about was how they're trying for a dystopia, but it's almost better than what we're actually living in right now in certain ways, in the sense that they're rounding up homeless people and giving them like at least putting them in a place where they could be, what.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my first impressions too, was this isn't that far off, and it's really depressing in a lot of ways. I mean, if it would definitely, that's taking the, not necessarily the pejorative look, but definitely the half glass, half empty look. But yeah, but as far as overall the, time travel back to Earth, yeah, definitely an interesting episode. I can't wait to see what happens next week in part two. But
I forgot.
I knew it was coming, fortunately, part two, since this was called part one. Well, maybe not, but yeah, I thought it was another, it's a lot better than Tomorrow's Yesterday. I don't think I liked it as much as Assignment Earth so far, but a lot of good stuff here. A lot of classic tropes, very TOS episode in a lot of ways. And I say that in a good way. And yeah, those are my first impressions.
I really like this two-parter. It isn't one of the best episodes of the series, but I like the message it has. I like the slate of guest actors they had assembled for it.
Yes.
And I think it was the first Deep Space Nine episode that felt like a message episode of commenting on social issues that touch our lifetime. It will not be the last DS9 episode that does this conceit. And I think it's having Cisco, they didn't really touch on race in this, for better or for worse. I'm not really sure if it would have improved upon it or not. I'm saying some of the future episodes that are along those lines get into racial relations and stuff as well. This one was all class warfare and a little bit technology, but mostly just the way we treat people that need help and how society's not compassionate. And it really sucks that 30 years later, we're here. I know we're still probably 15 or I don't know how many years from Star Trek Picard season 3, but it's also has a significant portion set in 2024. And obviously this episode came up in discussions of anticipation of that. Whether it connects or not, I won't reveal at this point. But yeah, it's just a rough period. And Star Trek Picard airing in 2024 and setting action in 2024, unfortunately, did not have to contradict the events of this episode. And that to me is a real bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, man, these writers were prophetic. And this was written by Ira Stephen Bear and Robert Hewitt Wolf. Both have story credits and then teleplay by Robert Hewitt Wolf. So certainly people close to the show. And directed by Reza Badawi. I think we just talked about Reza not too long ago because he directed an earlier episode this season of DS9. But yeah, it's good. It's just also depressing. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
We start out the Defiant is coming to Earth for a symposium on the Gamma Quadrant. Cisco mentions having a sister in Portland. To the best of my knowledge, that sister is never mentioned again or ever seen, which is a shame because
she lives with George Costanza's sister. They're the same. They're the same person.
Okay. It's a shame because later in the series they really develop his father as a recurring character, and I kind of wish that they would have mentioned visiting his father in New Orleans instead of his sister in Portland, because that's who we'll get to know. However, according to Wikipedia, Ben Sisko has a sister named Judith and at least 2 brothers. So he has brothers that I don't think we ever see either. I think we only ever meet his father. But that's okay. I really like his father. I wish they had him in the show this early on. But I did see on a Memory Alpha that it says there is a line in another episode where his sister is mentioned when he's talking to his dad. So at least they didn't forget she existed, even though they never cast her.
And that opening sequence where they're going to Earth and they're all talking about Earth and yada, 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 definitely feels like, oh, and I know, obviously, I had forgotten the episode, what happened until it started. And then I was like, oh yeah, we're going to Earth. So it's like, I guess maybe I anticipated, but it's all those same kind of things. It's definitely not, and I know it's no tomorrow is yesterday, because we did not like that, but there's no, they're not flying. I guess if they were flying through the air, it would make sense. But, O'Brien kind of rusty with the transporter.
I wrote that. Well, first he has that comment about he's glad he's an enlisted man, which is wonderful. But yeah, then when it actually gets to the transporter, I wrote the exact same thing. Rusty at transporters. He's supposed to be the transporter genius. Yeah. And there's another scene later in the episode that I think, like, when they start to, he and Kira, towards the end of this episode and into the next episode, when they're like, who are we going to get to send back in time? And they look at each other and it's clear that O'Brien's going back in time. It's like, wait, he's the transporter guy. This is complicated transport stuff. Should he be the one you're sending? But on the other hand, he did just lose 3 crewmen back in time. So maybe somebody else should be in the control.
See, I thought that's actually better than my take, which was, doesn't he have a wife and a kid? Sure, you go back. You got nothing. You're a childless cat lady. You go back.
Wow. Quite topical.
Hopefully not by the time.
It's a 3-person transporter pad. It almost feels tiny.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
And the amount of made up techno babble that O'Brien and Kira shoot out in this episode is astonishing. And still at the end of the day, it's kind of like, okay, that makes sense. Yep, I see what you're saying. Okay, I got you. Yeah,
you throw in a chronoton and you're like, chrono time, that makes sense.
I love the slingshotting past the sun effect that was established in TOS and all that stuff, and voyage home and all that, and see, to a point I do, because I always want my heroes to get back to the time they belong in, but and it's fun to see them in other times, although not in this instance, but it almost makes time travel seem real easy.
It certainly does, doesn't it?
Like, isn't everybody doing it? But I guess not everyone has a starship.
Yeah, I will say
like God,
did not
for instance.
Watch Enterprise, but they kind of get into the time travel stuff in Enterprise with temporal Cold War and stuff. So I do think you're right that it's getting to a point where it just feels like they're doing it a lot. They're doing it enough that Starfleet has protocols about how to handle time travel now, which they certainly did not in Kirk's day.
Well, and we get, and I'm jumping ahead, but we're talking time travel. So while we're here, it gets into the whole. So I was like, are they going to say don't do anything to change history? Yep. Are they going to run into the person that they brought up? That is,
yes. Yeah. Of course.
So I'll hold off on some of that conversation, but yeah, it's like, wait a minute. I mean, they literally say we're here and this is going to happen, so it makes sense. But then it's like, I knew who that guy was as soon as he stepped in to help them. I'm like, oh, I know who that is.
It didn't occur to me, honestly. I kept expecting to be like the other 2 guys, like the father and son.
Oh yeah,
before there was just the glare. It was like, wait, no, okay, can't think of who else would be. Oh, right.
But I will say that whole story of the Bell riots and here's what happened and here's why it's important. That was really good telling, not showing. I always talk about Seinfeld. Kramer does some of the best. Actually, everyone on there, but Kramer especially. Sometimes telling, not showing is great. And I think here, that part, I think that was. Although I guess they did kind of show it eventually in a way. But
pretty exposition heavy at times.
Yes.
And I think it sort of drugged the episode a little bit in pacing, but at the same time, it also felt kind of necessary to backstory it.
Yeah.
And it also gave you the anticipation of once Sisko takes on that role, oh, his life's in danger. If they want to preserve history, he may have to sacrifice himself.
right,
so it adds those stakes to it. Jumping back earlier than all that, Quark got on the phone, called up on the big screen, which is his only appearance in the episode, but I guess that's one way to keep him in the two-parter.
That was such a great conversation.
Yeah. And
yeah.
I thought it was gonna connect back to that at some point, but not at all. It was just very much like, we're dropping this. Here's a storyline, and we're not coming back to it. Not even a storyline, just a setup, and then we never went back.
So I liked it for a couple reasons. I mean, obviously, one, it allows Quark to be in the two-part and not have to sit out both parts.
Yes.
But another, it reminds us of the stuff with the Negus and everything, and shows us how Sisko's progressed when he can quote rules of acquisition back to him.
Fantastic.
And debate about it, which is wonderful. So I think, I get why it's, they wake up asleep after beaming. No pips or badges on, but Dax has hers, so I guess they were stolen. I kind of was like, where's the little subplot with somebody with the stolen technology doing something with the badges?
I think.
Or they should be followed up upon in something else at some point, but I don't think it ever is.
I think it's Bashir and Sisko, but behind them, I don't know if you guys saw, and this is kind of the sports part one of this episode, part one. It's a place called Candy Stick Park. I guess it's a candy store behind them. Candlestick Park was where the baseball giants, and the 49ers played out there for a long time. It was still there. Actually, in 94, I was at Candlestick Park. I thought that was a nice touch. Maybe there was an actual Candy Stick Park. I did not research that, but I thought that was a nice touch in the background. Like I said, as much as I hated the Times Arrow where we had to put up with crazy Mark Twain, but I don't know why I still always like to go back to San Francisco. That just always delights me. Maybe it's because of motion picture or just because it's just so established in the TOS and in the canon. But anyway, so
Candlestick Park was the stadium that the San Francisco Giants played in.
Yes.
But it was closed in 2014.
Yeah. Yep. They moved into a nicer park. The Niners kept playing there. The Giants moved into a nicer park.
So they have credit chips instead of cash money, which cash money is gone by 2024, but it's not credit chips. It's just a credit card. Maybe that's just some slang. We don't know because we're not rich yuppies.
At the Toronto Film Festival, it was cashless. So yeah, that's
nice.
Well, just for the benefit of viewers and listeners, way in the future, for historical perspective, we do actually still have paper money that we use. It's just that we commonly don't have to.
Keith. Speak for yourself.
There's certain bars that are still cash only.
That's
insane. That's insane. That's dumb. One thing they really missed was the interface terminals. That nobody had laptops. Everybody had a weird desktop that had a screen and all these buttons on the side, and nobody had a cell phone or anything portable either. So. And the video call thing never really took off. I mean, obviously we're on a video call now, but as a means of calling somebody up just to talk to them, I guess Apple has FaceTime, but those of us that don't use iPhones don't ever video call anyone other than a specific Zoom meeting. So I think they missed out, but it's hard to fault them 30 years in the future. I think video calls were a novel thing about the time they were writing this. They weren't really widely adopted, but
did they even really have cell phones?
Technology was there, so
actually,
I can see how you think it might become adopted.
I don't think they had smartphones yet.
Yeah, maybe the military.
Oh yeah. They didn't even have. They may have had a car phone in 1994. I don't remember, but cell phones
94, no,
had not taken off yet. The first car phone was the first car phone was 1946, but
in 92, 92, late 92, early 93, I had a friend that I worked with on my first job, and he was going to grad school. He was an engineer, and this is the first time I heard of this. And I'm like, so what are you working on? What's your project? He's like, it's this thing where your phone number doesn't change wherever you go. And I was like, that is insane. So, yeah, we weren't quite there yet.
It looks like, car phones they started using car phones in the 70s up through the 90s. I know they didn't really take off till about the 90s, but I feel like they could have foreseen the portable communications device at that point. But well, the card swipe, I did like that they had a card swipe where they inserted their credit card into the actual computer terminal to use it instead of typing in their numbers. Again, another miss, but That is one way to do it.
Oh, I mean, we got the chip cards for the or debit
Mhm.
cards and so forth. So you
Yeah.
do sort of like that.
Yeah, but not on your personal terminal. Like he was trying to
Hmm.
buy something for Jadzia, and he went to his personal computer terminal and inserted his credit card.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And the guy I'm talking about is the guy that finds Jadzia. That's Chris Brenner, played by Jim Metzler, best known
Yeah.
for LA Confidential, River's Edge, A Gun of Carna Blonde, and this two-part episode Deep Space Nine. Last credit I see was an episode of Mad Men in 2014.
Super familiar to me, but yeah, his credits don't reflect that. to
Not a
me.
lot of credits. It
Yeah.
does look like that he guest starred in a lot of stuff about 15, 20 years ago. Like
Yeah.
he's got guest spots in Glee, Big Love, Dexter, Grey's Anatomy, Crossing Jordan. So we probably just recognize him from all of those guest spots.
I will say this. I feel like they caught that Tech was going to be in Frisco, and I just essentially called him Zuckerberg in my notes. I think
Oh,
at some point.
ouch.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this now, and I'll come back to it. But he's my shady guy because I was sure in part one that he's not on the up and up. Something's wrong with this guy. But he was just rich and with the elite. But
He was not my shady guy. But yeah,
he's pretty
there
nice
was.
sometimes.
I did have a hard time believing that Dax flirting with him would just get her what she wanted. But then again, it is Dax. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So they mentioned
I
that
love,
in the Technobabble Stephen mentioned earlier that the cloaking device creates chronoton particles. I
Mhm.
want to know why. Does the cloaking device somehow use some sort of time thing where it like projects a part of space before you flew into it? Like, how does that?
That's not a
Why
bad
do they
theory.
need time particles to work on cloaking devices?
Keith,
Well, I
you
mean,
got
it's to
no. I was
we probably have the
finished.
same idea. I mean, for camouflaging purposes, it's like if you have. So I've thought about this a long time ago. The idea of having a camera of some sort. You probably have to have multiple cameras on the exterior of something, or even just like on one face of something. If you were like going to try to make it like an invisibility blanket or screen or something like that to simulate that. So it has to be keeping track of what's behind you in a certain way and projecting it in front of you.
Hmm.
And if it's a moving object, then
Yeah, that makes sense.
it's almost like some sort of AI predictive thing, but they're using time travel instead in a sense.
That's good.
They mentioned that Starfleet wants to send somebody up the Defiant, but they don't want to risk the transporter, sorry. So they're going to send a shuttle. And my first thought was, how does a shuttle dock with a Defiant? So I did some research, and the Defiant, basically that big circle on top of the Defiant, there's a similar circle on the bottom, and the one on the bottom opens up, and shuttles can fly up into it, like helicopter style.
Huh.
So they do have a shuttle bay underneath, although we never see it on screen, but the concept drawing from the ship's designer looks like it really only holds one shuttle at a time. It's a pretty small shuttle bay.
I know we've talked about this, but how many people do we think the Defiant can hold? Like, how big is it?
I was thinking like 30 to 40 people.
Okay.
I would have sworn before you had like the exact number of specs and everything, and
Defiant?
Yeah.
I'm not on my head, but I mean, it exists for sure. I just have to find it. I've got their the technical manuals with the blueprints and everything, but I haven't like memorized. I mean, it had no dedicated crew that lived on it. I knew that because it's permanently docked to DS9, so that's why the quarters are so small and utilitarian rather than like nice like we see in other starships. But 50. It looks like they generally 50 crew on Defiant class vessels.
Checks out.
According to Quora, which isn't super reliable, but whatever. It does say they could hold up to 150 in evacuation situations. So small. Smaller than the original Enterprise by far. It was meant to be a compact war vessel for short-range missions.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And we'll see it used throughout the rest of the series.
Okay.
And you'll get to see what it's capable of and what it does exactly. So we got lots of time to get to know the Defiant. I love that little ship. Or as Worf would say, when in one of the next gen movies, Worf's flying it and they beam him to the Enterprise, and they're like, Riker says something about your little ship, and Worf looks at him and goes, "Little," and I'm like, that's funny. Anyway, I did notice on the one display in the rich guy, I think it was in the main processing area in the Sanctuary District. They had like a clock and the temperature, and it was reading degrees Celsius. So another miss. on what we were going to be doing in this day and age.
Yeah.
Sisko sure tells us a lot of stuff, but he also says, and this part confused me, but I think as the episode goes on, it kind of works. But he says that the U.S., after these riots, began fixing their long-simmering social problems, which would be great because the social problems have been long-simmering and are awful right now in real life. But then I was like, isn't World War III coming soon? So how much do they really fix if they get pulled into World War III? But I guess World War III isn't like starting in the States. It's something the United States responds to. And when I looked up when World War III takes place in Star Trek history, because I was curious on how that works in the timeline, it's actually said to be between 2026 and 2053. So it was a long period of mini conflicts. And in the revised Star Trek timeline, that's part of Strange New Worlds and Enterprise, the eugenics wars don't start till 2026. It's not the 90s anymore.
I was going to ask. So what are the eugenics?
Well, they talk about, I guess, because in Star Trek Enterprise, there's a temporal Cold War and it messes with the timeline, that as of right now in Star Trek history, the eugenics wars are now in the 2020s and later, which was their attempt to kick the can down the road some more. But it seems short-sighted that you only kicked it down the road that far, and now we're already up to it.
Yeah. Would you say it's a time of civil war? Or it is a time of civil war?
Technically, what it says in the Star Trek canon is the eugenics wars leads into the Second Civil War, which then leads into World War III.
Okay.
So I guess trying to fix the societal issues, because the eugenics war is not U.S.-based, but a second Civil War would be. So maybe the societal issues, trying to fix them, there's backlash and it leads to a second Civil War. I don't know. I'm hoping I will know these wars better after we finish Enterprise, because I think that's where they dealt with kind of these new time changes. But yeah, in Strange New Worlds, Pike says that eugenics was in like 2026. So the timeline.
I keep forgetting about Enterprise.
Keith, you'll get there as to what I meant by it is a time of civil war. You'll get there.
Oh, I will say they were right about jobs being hard to come by in 2024. As somebody that's been unemployed for the last few months and looking for work, jobs are hard to come by.
Relatable, yeah.
Although I think they were looking for different types of jobs I'm looking for, but whatever. They were also right up with the homelessness issues, and that's what was getting me this summer. Is what they were kicking all the homeless out of San Francisco. They were rounding them up and kicking them out, and I'm like, well, I guess they don't want to build a sanctuary district because they already saw what happened. So instead, they're just going to kick them out. But at the same point as in this episode, is you're hiding the problem, but you're not solving it. You're just making them go somewhere else. And that's exactly what this is. The sanctuary district was a slightly different approach, but it's the same result.
Yeah, essentially building a wall, which is still a hot thing, right? And then walling in, and obviously a backlot in this instance, but yeah. And, it's one of those things. I have these conversations with people about the homeless problem. They're like, yeah, San Francisco, it's so terrible, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, but you're like, I don't want to go there because of X problem. It's like, well, one, let's try and solve this problem. I mean, not that these people can do it by themselves, but it's what you're talking about, Jimmy. Where it's like, well, let's just shove them over here. And I'm as elitist and bad about it as anyone. I mean, I live in a nice part of town, and I used to live in the short north, and I don't quote unquote deal with that as much as I used to. But that's not why I moved here. But it is the thing. It's like, well, but on the other hand, I work downtown. I'm downtown a lot, and either way, it's not solving the problem. The problem is not getting solved.
Well, I know when I used to work downtown, you'd occasionally see people sitting or sleeping on a bench. Yeah. But I do know there were like encampments that were more like a lot of people together. And I don't know if that's where everybody went at night, but definitely not. It was never walled off, but that same principle.
I loved that it was keeping it real here, but when Bashir's like, that man is mentally ill. He should not be here, And I think we've made a little progress in that sense, that we definitely are more aware of mental health issues and stuff. And I know for myself, there used to be people on the street. I'm like, what is wrong with this guy? Now it's like, it's obvious what's wrong with this person. They need kind of help that either there isn't there, or they're just not seeking out, or they're not even aware that they need to seek that out. And I think we've improved that, but obviously there's still lots of people that are out there that,
so we should let a lot of mental health stay home, or a lot of mentally ill stay homeless, or lock them up in jails, which aren't a good. They don't help
exactly. Either. And this is like my experience on the streets of Columbus, but there used to be a woman that would get on the bus all the time with me, and she would just kind of like not spit at people, but kind of spit venom at people. And then she would actually sleep in the laundromat that used to be near my house here. And I was actually kind of afraid of her. But, you know, initially I'm like, man, like I was saying earlier, it's like, what's wrong with this woman? And then like, I got a little more enlightened. I'm like, she needs to be at a place where she can get help. And we're failing completely, you know. No one, you know, that's definitely falling through the cracks. And, you know, some people are still, regardless of how much we set up that social safety net, which, again, there's definitely a part of our society that is determined to tear that safety net down, and then other people that are determined to improve it. But yeah, I mean, this, again, it is very ripped from the headlines, this episode, but it is, I think the fact that it's so on the money still is pretty good in a bad way.
We'll say something this episode got really right historically that at first I thought was wrong, but upon further examination realized they got it right, is it's the night of August 30th and Cisco's shivering from the cold, which my first thought was, so did climate change not happen? But then when I like think about it deeper, I think climate change did happen. The world got much hotter. People adjusted to the heat. In the 24th century, they still have to keep the starbase cranked to 80 because they're all used to hotter temperatures. So you go back in time, you're like, oh, it's hotter than it was 40 years ago, but compared to how it is in the future, we're cold.
And you know, again, Frisco is a weird area. The Bay Area is weird. It can get cool, obviously, but beautiful area. But my other thought was, how come Cisco is freezing, but Bashir didn't seem that cold?
I wondered that as well. But, you know, also, Cisco grew up in New Orleans. That's where his dad is. It's a lot hotter there. So maybe that could be part of it.
That's a good point.
So we're recording this at the end of September 2024. So about a month after this episode takes place. But in July and August, in real life, 2024, there were major homeless camp sweeps in San Francisco where they were sweeping out the camps and kicking them out.
That is so strange.
I was thinking the Bell riots were going to happen and fight back, but they never did, unfortunately.
Yeah, and
Fortunately, because nobody died, as far as I know. I'm sure a couple people did, but it hasn't been reported. But unfortunately, because we need that pushback, we need that revolution.
Yeah. When Cisco describes the Bell riots, it's just like, all right, good safety tip. But speaking of historical, when you mentioned historical, Keith, it reminded me of the Attica riot, the riot at the Attica prison in upstate New York. There's a couple of really good documentaries about that and TV films. And also, if you guys know Dog Day Afternoon, Al Pacino's character in that movie keeps yelling Attica to get the crowd agitated. So that was and actually this echoes parts of that, the whole Attica situation, where essentially it was an instance where the guards were terrible, like these guards here, although a couple of them end up being good guys or whatever. The inmates take over, and at some point, the governor of New York, I think it was Rockefeller, he sends in the National Guard or whatever and the cops, and they killed a lot of people. And you know, if you watch the documentaries, they killed a lot of people unnecessarily, and they killed a lot of innocent people. And they weren't worried about whether they killed the hostages and all that stuff. So I recommend, I wish I could give you a specific one, but it echoed a lot of that stuff. And actually it was New York State, but it wasn't New York City. It was upstate New York. So you had a lot of, and I think this is actually still a problem. This led to a lot of reforms, but not enough, obviously. But Attica was upstate. So you had a lot of prisoners there from the city or downstate, but it was in a very rural area of New York that, you know, you don't think of rednecks being in New York, but they're there. So, yeah, especially once you get outside of the city. As much as it's beautiful up there, and I'm from Syracuse and I love it, but I also had some relatives that were quote unquote rednecks there. So
Ashton was way off this time. Those neckties that like clasp at the neck instead of hanging down, and both men and women were wearing, and just a lot of the outfits. I'm like, oh, they got fashion wrong. But has any show showing future looks ever gotten fashion anywhere near right? I don't think so.
I think it's something. There's got to be. I don't know if anyone's ever really tried to think about that or study it or come up with a theory. But it's just there has to be some sort of psychological explanation for what we have done. I think as just a whole, like over the people on this planet, and the way we've sort of defied what we're seeing in fiction. You know, like, ever since we're little kids, we're seeing, you know, like the Jetsons and that kind of thing that people just keep predicting it's gonna be like this. We're gonna do this at some point, and someone actually has to make a choice to go, I'm gonna start dressing like this, and of course, who's gonna do it?
Yeah,
because you think of it as something being
I'll
being
do it.
very cartoonish. Well, I mean, I would probably be the one who would do something like that, but it has to be something that is being made available for people to wear. They have to have designers actually doing this in a like a mainstream practical level, and that just doesn't seem like it's going to happen
please
anytime
note the
soon.
date and time that the Jetsons clothing movement began. Right now on this show, the three of us, we're gonna make it happen.
You know, the Jetsons had that TV movie where they went back in time to the Flintstones, but the popular internet theory is that the Jetsons is actually a prequel to the Flintstones.
I did hear,
And that's why they have dinosaurs and technology, because civilization fell after we did a lot of bad things, including brought back the dinosaurs. And so then it just evolved into the Flintstones as a post-apocalyptic society.
Wow.
Huh. While we're on fashion, everything Jadzia's outfit, her hair, everything sharp. She's gorgeous and everything, but I was just like, that was all very interesting. I feel like, and I don't know that it was stealing from anyone or anything. It maybe a little bit, it reminded me of Blade Runner or whatever, Sean Young in that, but it was, I thought that was at least interesting and a really good look for her.
You made me think of something very significant that I was or like another part of it, because there was something I had in mind I wanted to talk about with Kira, but we get to see the other side of the coin with Jadzia, which I thought was very interesting. First of all, Jadzia was very clever, and well, I mean, just very, very quick on her feet. And you can see the gears working, and it's just like that's how espionage should work. This is somebody who using some common sense and going, you know what, I'm gonna not giving away too much, not being super obvious about like trying to draw information out of them. But it was just
a good point, Keith, because I thought she did it enough to be like we knew what she was up to, but not over the top that the guy should have obviously seen it, because there was no reason for it. I mean, granted, he was blinded by her beauty, but because I mean, even if Bashir and Cisco are there, he's still gonna be like, "Hey, lady, do you need help?" He's not gonna even,
But it's I mean, there's something to be said for the acting job too, because it was just that perfect level of subtlety that you could see she's projecting. I'm doing this.
I thought it was great.
But the other part of that point is when he asks her about the pigmentation, just immediately tattoos.
Yes.
Not even. I mean, it could have been freckles. It could have been any explanation, but even that was. But my point is, we go back and we see Kira with the bandage already over explaining, I broke my nose. And whenever we see things like that, it always makes me ask.
We haven't seen Kira with a bandage saying I broke my nose yet, Keith.
Oh, you're right.
I think you're thinking of next week. I think you've
the
got
chronotons
particles in your brain.
Yeah. But we'll just stick with the Jadzia portion of that for the moment. Then I wouldn't have assumed anything else. If if a Trill actually came down in real life right now, first of all, there would be the thing. Well, they must be cosplaying someone. I would, if Star Trek weren't a thing, I'd assume it was something like that, or any number of other explanations before I would jump to that must be an alien.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Tattoos make a lot of sense to me.
Yep. At worst, I might assume rice picker or something, but
in the 90s, I think if somebody showed up in the 90s with those spots, it would have been a harder sell than in 2024. Certainly. So they got that part right.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, tattoos, whatever. So we get to the part where there's a fight because they're protecting somebody. And I don't know if you notice this happens frequently in Star Trek, that as they're punching, like they punch and then the guy just stands there and waits to be punched.
I was thinking about that. I was that choreography.
They're so polite about their punching, where they just stand there to get punched.
Just like grabbing the shoulders, turn them around. I'm stunned because you turned me around.
Right.
Oh, I just got punched.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous in retrospect.
I was surprised how long it went on, and then I realized, oh, this went on this long so we could get to Mr. Bell being killed.
It's a very 60s fight, because nowadays, close quarters fight, you grip each other, like 60s TV fight. Like you grip each other, you're in close and you're holding on and you can't like step back and make that cinematic visual. But
especially the exchange with Julian
Yeah.
breaking out the double axe handles. You know, that having to wait to
like just stand
bring
here
that
while I
up and
bring my double axe handle on you. Something Kirk would have done. You're right,
Yeah.
Keith. I'm sorry, Stephen. Gabriel
And-
Bell walks in, and they shoot him as such a hero shot that you
Uh-huh.
know who it is because there's. Why else would you frame up this guy this way, right?
Yeah.
It's so heavy-handed. The real Gabriel Bell, who was in the episode so short, like as much as they make him a hero, you expect him to survive at least a little bit, like get to know him before he dies. But he was played by John Lendale Bennett, who's not really an actor. He's actually a stuntman. He's played a number of characters in DS9 and Next Gen and Voyager, a lot of them Klingons. But he also was the stunt double and photo double for Avery Brooks and a stunt double for Tim Russ in Voyager.
funny.
So, he did lived a very hard life and died of his 4th heart attack at the age of 54 in 2006. So, he played college football for The Ohio State University.
Wow.
And he worked briefly as a conductor before he became an actor. So he
Like
was,
a music conductor or train conductor.
I assume music. It does not say. I'm on Memory Alpha. It does not say what. But
When was he at Ohio State?
it does not say that. But he was born in 1951, so I would say probably like the 70s,
early 70s. Okay.
late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
It looks like he also was a stunt man in Face Off, Gone in 60 Seconds, Minority Report, and a handful of other films. But he only has 6 acting credits.
4 heart attacks. Holy mackerel. I mean, he's a tough guy because he survived 3. I mean,
yeah, but his 4th one at only 56.
Yeah, that's how old I am.
I know. And how many heart attacks have you had?
I've done nothing with my life. I've had 0 heart attacks that I know of.
So I looked Archie, if you're an OSU person or live in Ohio, Archie was 72 to 75, so this would have been right before Archie's time, I would imagine.
Yeah, right around there.
To give you a reference that is recognizable.
Oh, yeah.
He's not even listed on IMDb for this episode. I had to actually do some. Oh, no, he is.
I forgot to even look.
He is on IMDb. I'm sorry, I missed it. But yeah, I did some work to find out because his IMDb page has very little, but Memory Alpha has a little bit more. When he's stabbed and Bashir starts doing CPR on him, which confused me, but I guess with stabbing you go into shock and sometimes CPR is necessary.
And he does
after you plug the wound and make sure it's not bleeding anymore, which Bashir didn't even mess with the wound. He starts CPR.
The blood out. What do you want to do? You want to get the blood out? And then he says the classic thing that's been spoofed and everything, breathe, damn you, which I think was an ER thing not long after. And then to the point that it was spoofed in South Park, Bigger, Longer, Uncut. George Clooney playing the doctor.
Oh,
it was another one. So that
is a good one.
And I knew it was Bell. It's a small universe,
right?
So about the telegraphing, for me, I was probably just distracted enough where I didn't really see the frame up and think, oh, this is what's happening. Mm-hmm. And about the point of him not being in the show enough, for me that helped. That I mean, I bought it because of that.
Yeah. I didn't see it wasn't in it enough. I'm just saying with the framing, it felt like he was going to be in it more.
No, my point is they caught me off guard because of that. I was waiting for them to prominently feature someone in the way. It was like, oh, this must be Bell doing all this, and no, there's just like, oh, this is that one guy from before. Bam, dead. Yeah. Wait, what? And I love that reveal because you think you're gonna at least again like they're gonna let you see it coming a little bit sooner before he's actually dead.
Yeah.
So while we're on Mr. Bell, Gabriel Bell, I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is, but Edith Keller versus Gabriel Bell. Because it's kind of a similar thing. Like if something happens to this person, it changes all of history. So Edith Keeler, if she doesn't die, the Nazis take over. Gabriel Bell, if he doesn't do what he's got to do, then we never get. I guess both of them play a part in us getting to 24th century Star Trek, right?
So yeah, and the way trying to wrap my head around because they don't explicitly tie these events into the Second Civil War and World War III, but if you assume, and I think we've got to, that the Second Civil War probably happened with pushback on trying to fix society, you can say that Gabriel Bell might have caused the Second Civil War and World War III, but then without the Second Civil War and World War III, we don't get to Starfleet. So
We don't
you
get
know,
speeches from Kirk about how we move past those ways.
yeah. So Edith Keeler died to keep the world from going evil early. He died to make the world evil when it needed to be evil, I guess.
It is a time of civil war. This is the Seinfeld part of the podcast. So you've got, and I know it's illustrated. So Jadzia's living the life. She's in, with the elites and all that and doing well. And then Cisco and Bashir are in the sanctuary, which is weird. I love that they call it sanctuary because it's such a double speak kind of thing. Like, oh, it's a sanctuary, but it's not. But it made me think of the Seinfeld episode, The Airport, where Jerry is in first class and Elaine is in the economy class in the back. And it's very, and like Jadzia knows she has to find them and she's definitely worried about them, but she's not that worried about She's not spending every minute doing that, but which is the smart play. It's a smart move, but I enjoyed that very much. And just to get back to fashion a little bit more, it's definitely one of those, as soon as they, and I think this makes sense and I enjoyed it. As soon as Cisco's like, maybe we can make a deal, or maybe the guys say to him, maybe we can make a deal. I'm like, they're going to be in street clothes. And then, which, is always interesting. It's not as interesting as them being in Robin Hood clothes and all that stuff, but that's just another TOS. We're on a planet that's set in another time, even though it's actually Earth and blah, blah, blah. So I enjoyed that.
I will say, because I'm looking at Memory Alpha as we're talking, that I forgot this, but Strange New Worlds established in canon that part of the instigation for the Second Civil War and World War III was Trump supporters and MAGA hats protesting because they believe Biden had stolen the election in 2020. So that is official Star Trek canon.
Well, again, they're not wrong yet.
Oh, God, I hope we're not about to go through World War III. Anyway, especially one that lasts 25 years like it seems to in this. So, because Gabriel Bell dies, Starfleet's gone. The Romulans have made it near Alpha Centauri because I guess humans were not around to push them back. I guess, or at least not in any like spacefaring way. They talk about subspace bubbles, which seems pretty convenient, but whatever. I know we gotta. I mean, honestly, on Agent Forever, the Enterprise just stopped existing, which was, I think, a little more realistic than a subspace bubble that keeps the Defiant around. But on the other hand, seeing the Agent Forever, they had a way to get back. Whereas this, they didn't if Defiant's just gone.
So to go down the rabbit hole, so have they just created another timeline? Because those other people didn't just vanish, right? But they're just not in this timeline, right?
It depends on what theory they subscribe to. I mean, like everything I've seen,
those people to subscribe to, or we subscribe to.
We the audience. Well, they actually have to send in their subscription fees to the right plan.
I'm vanishing just like I thought I was.
There's a number of different time travel explanations depending on what version you buy into.
It's
because none of them are real. Take your pick.
The real scientific version of this is there's a separate timeline and it can become real after a certain point, or it's branching off and they have to do,
That's a theory. We don't know for sure, right? And that's why different time travel stories treat it with different rules. It's not the Back to the Future version. Of course, we end the episode with Cisco saying his name is Gabriel Bell because that they got to step in and Cisco's the hero and all that stuff. So that was the end of my notes for this part one.
The only other thing I have is my alternate episode, which actually I think ended up being what the episode was about. Oh yeah, it was that they go ahead and change the future, and they did. So but mine, and then I just qualified that with more like Jadzia is like, you know what, this is pretty cool. Actually, I'm just going to keep doing what I want here. I'm living the good life. Moving on. So I would have loved to have followed her more, even though I know that's a different show altogether. But maybe that's why. But anyway,
my alternate episode was the timeline is permanently changed, and we do like a flashpoint story where things have actually significantly altered from here on out.
That's what I guess I was thinking. But
I think with the next gen movies and Voyager about to premiere, they just couldn't. DS9's writers did not have the leash to be able to do that for real.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll wrap it up real clean next week and make it.
My other alternate scene in the episode was Trump was doing a lot of cameos around this time, like Home Alone.
Oh God!
So what if Trump had shown up like at the party in the rich guy's office.
Yep.
Oh
Yeah.
my
Obviously,
God.
he wouldn't be on the set long enough to play the rich guy.
Right.
But if he had shown up in the party at the rich guy's office, I'd actually would have bought that as like, nope, that fits. That's absolutely where he would be.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in 2024, nobody in San Francisco is welcoming Trump into any rich people parties. He has to stay in the red states, but you know.
So I wanted to say the other purpose of showing the Jadzia scenes, you know, the dichotomy, of course, where we're seeing the two different worlds, but it's also a good way of pointing out, I think, to the audience how similar they probably are to those people on one side, whichever side of they're more
Mm-hmm.
similar to, but just that kind of sort of ignorance / indifference to what's happening. They make these assumptions about the people there and why they're doing what they're doing, and those are just criminals, whatever.
Yeah.
I thought the dimmies and gimmies, isn't that established in part 1? The dimmies and gimmies.
Yeah, dimms
I
and
thought that
gimmies.
was an interesting distinction.
And ghosts.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
I actually had to go back and rewind to like, what was the definition of a ghost again? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of guest stars we didn't get to, and some of them we should probably just leave for next week because they're more prevalent. But I do think maybe we mention Webb and his son, because his son's not really in part too much. So Webb, who's the guy that Sisko rescues before he replaces Gabriel Ballard, who wants peaceful protest to change, is played by the great Bill Smitrovich, who I love. Best known for, according to this, The November Man, Air Force One, Ghost of Mississippi, The Last Ship. I would argue I know him even better from The Practice, Gotham. Was he in Gotham?
Maybe.
I thought he was in Gotham. He's in Joker, fully on dude.
Yeah, I've got to look at him. That's the guy with the boy. He's not
in Gotham. I'm thinking somebody else for Gotham, but he was in The Practice. I know that. Yes, the Webb is the guy with the boy. Yeah, he's been around for a long time. He's always wonderful. Lots of good parts. A lot of guest spots, but he's had some starring roles as well. So, and his son, Danny, was played by Richard Lee Jackson, who's best known for Saved by the Bell, The New Class. He was one of the leads. He was in one episode of Ally McBeal. And the straight to DVD, I believe, Bring It On Again. So he only has 22 credits, but he did guest star in some stuff in the 2010s. So not completely gone.
The guy that plays the gruff security guard.
So now you're talking about Dick Miller, who played
Big. He's
Dick Miller, best known for The Terminator, the original film, The Burbs, the original Gremlins, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, 185 credits. Love him. Yeah. He's always fun. He
was in an episode of Next Generation. So I think we talked about him then because I came across one of his movies, Night Call Nurses. I think we talked about that.
He was in a season 1 episode. He was in The Big Goodbye in season 1.
That's isn't that, what's his name? The detective? Isn't that one? Is that one?
It's the Dixon Hill. Yeah. It was. Yeah. I like Dick Miller. He's fun. I guess since we're going down that road, the younger guy, the younger guard, was played by Al Rodrigo, best known for Last Rites, House of Sand and Fog, The Birdcage, and doing additional voices for Despicable Me. He has 72 credits and is still active.
Yeah.
As well. He was additional voices in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So it looks like he does a lot of animation, a lot of voice work. And then the last guest star of note in this episode, I'll go ahead and get it out of the way, is Frank Military, who plays the lead ghost, the guy with the long hair and the hat. He plays BC, is the guy's name. And he's best known for Blind Faith, The Last Castle, Last Exit to Brooklyn, NCIS Los Angeles. He does not look so familiar. He only has 11. Oh, that's producer. Looks like he's got 11 producer credits, 15 writer credits, and 15 actor credits. So he's got to spread out, but it looks like he's both an actor and a producer in like NCIS Los Angeles and a couple other shows. So
that's the guy who's the main bad guy, or
BC,
the main ghost.
The main ghost.
I enjoyed. Oh, why is it on here? Oh, Tina Lifford. Tina Lifford. She's done a lot of stuff too.
I had her too. I must have accidentally closed it. Yeah, she played the main worker that processed them and then got scared.
Yeah.
She's best known for the movie Babe, where she voiced a sheep. Catch and Release, Hostage, Blood Work. She has 114 credits.
Yeah, she's still doing stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, she is. She did 15 episodes of Parenthood a few years ago. I like that show.
Yeah.
But yeah, So a lot of guest stars, and we'll even add to that slightly in
Yes,
part two.
I have a feeling next week there'll be a couple more big ones.
At least one that I can think of. So ranking the episode, who was your shady? I know Steven said his was not Vin, Chris Brenner, the rich guy, right?
Yeah, I was expecting him to do something bad.
Well,
We'll see next week. I still am.
My shady is just the rich in general that put them all in the sanctuaries, and we're like, no, that's fixed. But clearly, they just wanted them out of sight, out of mind.
You know, and again, I alluded to this earlier, but I think that's kind of what. Hey, as long as I don't have to look at them, you know, then problem solved on my end.
Absolutely. Keith?
Going with the lead ghost.
BC?
Yeah.
Yep, it's on the nose, but you know.
Yeah, I had him as my annoying character.
Me too.
No, I'm gonna make BC the annoying one for this one because I think he, you know, I don't want to give too much away, but
yeah.
I think Vin might be a lot more annoying in part two, but who are you having a drink with?
Tina Lifford, Lee, the clerk.
I'm having a drink with Cisco. He's having a rough day, and now he has to take on this guy's death, his place in history. Ooh, poor guy.
Having a drink with.
He's gonna need a drink before he goes back into there to save the hostages.
Jadzia at the party. Best place to be.
But
I guess it happens here next week, but every time that our boy BC, is that what we're calling him?
BC's the ghost.
Every time he called him new boy, I thought they didn't get into it, but the way Avery Brooks looked at him was perfect. Like, I can't change history, otherwise I would be changing history right now.
I think Avery Brooks was half a second for beating the crap out of him.
Yeah, it was again, it's that playing it but underplaying it just right, just enough.
And Avery Brooks is heavily involved with some of the future episodes that deal more with this thing. Ranking the episode overall, I don't really know where to start. Let's start with civil defense. Better or worse than civil defense? That's when O'Brien and Jake accidentally activate the security program and the station almost gets destroyed. Cisco and O'Brien and Jake are like trapped in the one room and they keep climbing up higher and stuff. And Ducat's appearing on the screen. Attention, Major and workers.
Oh, there we go. There, I like that one better. Was that a two-parter or that was just the one?
Just one.
Is that one more?
I think I'd go above. So Jimmy, we're gonna make you decide.
Oh, that's rough because I'm torn. I like this episode, but
I can't say
so that was the episode where the Kardashian actually showed up on the station, made himself a drink, was walking around all the that's right there. That
is more fun. That is more fun. I think I'm gonna go down with. I think I'm gonna go down with Keith.
You guys persuaded me. Yep.
Oh, you're gonna go down now too.
I'm gonna let's make it unanimous.
Okay. Below that is Equilibrium.
I think this one goes under that too, honestly.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Keith.
I think you're right too.
Surprised we're going so far down, but I guess this has been such a strong season.
Yep.
And this episode's good, but it's got a lot of weakness too. It's got a lot of like more exposition it needs. It's got some filler stuff. It's a little heavy-handed. Below Equilibrium is the Abandoned. That's the Jemadar child that quickly ages.
That's tough.
I'm going to say two things. One, I think I'd go above that. Two, this bring back to this episode. There were definitely, and we'll see how I feel about part two. A lot of moments where I'm like, am I watching Star Trek? And I don't know, sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it isn't. Like Sitting on the Edge of Forever, I guess you could make that argument, but it's not a good one. Here, there are times I was like, this is a different show. And obviously it's not TOS, but it's still.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna.
I was gonna ask Stephen for clarification. So is it like a sort of like an impatience? Like, where's all my sci-fi stuff, or is it like I'm impressed because this is a gritty kind of?
Yeah, I wish I'd been like, this is gritty. I wasn't so much I need my sci-fi as much as I was, and maybe this points to why I'm going along with you guys. There were moments where I was like, let's get to whatever we're getting to. I'm not interested. Okay, everybody in here, they're jerks. I get it. It's Red Hour all the time.
Yeah.
So
I think I'm gonna go above Abandoned as well.
Yep.
Steven, this as well. Okay, great.
Yep.
Next week, Past Tense Part 2. I wonder if it's gonna be related to this episode. Cisco's forced to take the place of a key historical figure on Earth in 2024 in order to preserve the timeline. A remarkably non-spoilery description, given what we just watched.
Yeah. Like, well, we already gave away there's going to be a part 2, so.
Till then, live long.
To be continued. And prosper.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?